What's up, everybody? How you doing out there? This is Micah Dobbins, host of the Micah Dobbins Show. I'm excited about our guest today. We actually have former officer and lawyer Melaney LaGrone here with us today of the LaGrone Law Firm. Also, we have current officer Anthony Burton here as well, as we have a discussion with the police here on the Micah Dobbins Show. What's up, guys? We are so glad that you're here today. And as stated earlier, we have special guests for this show and this topic. There have been several situations going on across the land. We know there's been civil unrest and different things in the U.S., different neighborhoods and different things that we see every day on the news. And I wanted to do a show where we could actually discuss with both current officers and former officers about some of the different issues going on in the hood and maybe try to come to a meeting of the minds. So hopefully you guys will be able to gather something from this conversation. Hopefully all of us coming to the table and really discussing these issues and affairs will not only bring about a different perception for some, but maybe even an understanding for others. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest today. As stated, Melaney LaGrone has worked in the police force and is now currently an attorney. So, Melaney, if you could you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and about your experience first?
Hey, everyone. I am attorney Melaney LaGrone. I have a solo practice here in Atlanta, Georgia, LaGrone Law. In my former life, I was a police officer for almost 10 years in Detroit. I worked about 7 years at Gang Squad and the other 3 at narcotics before I moved to Atlanta and became a criminal defense attorney. So thanks for having me, Micah.
All right, no problem. Thank you for coming. That is awesome, and thank you for your service. And we also have current officer Anthony Burton. If you don't mind, just share with the audience a little bit about yourself.
My name is Anthony Burton. I went to college in Alabama. I got my master's in criminal justice. I moved to Ireland because I'm a German citizen. I thought I'd move back to Europe, but then I ended up in Colorado, and I've been a police officer about 15 and a half years.
All right, awesome. Now I'm going to go ahead and interject here and let you guys know that Melaney, you've seen on the show before. We actually had interviewed George Floyd's uncle a couple of weeks ago. It was quite a time, and she was one of the guests on here on the show. And Anthony, I've actually he's known me since I was a kid, actually. Probably like 9 years old when he met me. So I'm excited about having him on. And one of the things that I've always loved, even about Anthony, just right off the rip, is as he mentioned having dual citizenship, he's been able to speak fluent German, which I always thought was the coolest thing. I took German 1 year in high school. I didn't get to retain it as much as I would have liked. I remember Guten Tag and a few other little phrases.
I tried Spanish and I couldn't get it.
Hey, you got German. Right.
That's right.
Oh, man, look, I tried Spanish. I tried Chinese. I did not get too good at any of them. But my kids actually can speak a little bit. I got a daughter who can speak Chinese, a son who speaks a little Japanese, and they all can speak Spanish. So go figure. Just skipped over me. All right. So we're going to get into a couple of questions tonight, guys. And just feel free to be as candid as you want with the audience because they really need to know what's going on. My heart goes out because my father was a police officer, and I know that there are good officers out there that are putting their lives on the line to try to make communities safe. I know that occasionally you do have situations where there's bad officers out there, but tonight's goal was really to try to bring about a unity and a discussion and to kind of give people an inside view of what you've dealt with and what you deal with currently as an officer. So my first question I want to ask was, when someone is pulled over in a traffic stop, when you have to cut the lights on and things, what usually goes on in the mind of an officer as they get ready to make that stop?
Obviously, I can only speak for Colorado, but when I pull someone over, especially at night, because I work in a ski town, but we also contract with the sheriff's department, so we get to patrol in the county as well.
Okay.
So. And it's mostly a predominantly white place that I'm at. So when I pull someone over, it's usually is usually pretty normal. My lights come on, I park behind them. I get out of my car. First I watch to see what's going in the car, if there's a lot of movement going on or things like that. And I approach the car from the side. And I usually talk to the person, especially at night. I try to talk to the person so they have to turn around and look at me. I tell them the reason I'm stopping them. I don't say, do you know what you did, or do you know why I'm stopping you? I tell them. And most of the people I work with, they do the same thing. And sometimes they agree with me, sometimes they don't. And when they don't agree with me, I tell them that, if I lie, I get fired. I can't just pull you over for no reason. This is what you did. And we got body cams, I would say maybe 10 years ago. We were one of the first departments in that valley to get body cams. And in Colorado now, you have to turn them on. If you don't turn them on, you can be criminally prosecuted. And they're going to start that, I think, in 2 years. So, and I talk to the person. I try to be non-threatening. So, I walk up, this is what I stopped you for. Can I see your license, registration, proof of insurance, that kind of thing. Now, if I see a person that's nervous, like sometimes it's mostly we get people from Texas and Oklahoma that come visit. Sometimes I see them gripping the steering wheel, real tight. And when I see that, especially from Texas, Oklahoma, I say, I ask them, do you have a gun in the car? And they tell me no. I was like, well, just relax. I'll make this quick, and I have a certain limit when I write tickets with speed and with, weaving. A lot of people, who doesn't go over the white line sometimes? But when I'm looking for DUIs, I'm looking for certain things. But, I just tell them to relax. And if I issue them a ticket, I don't. I can only detain them for a certain time, as long as it would take me to write a ticket. I can't keep them there for anything else. If it's like a DUI investigation or something else kind of thing, then I can keep them a bit longer, because now I start an investigation about, a crime that might occur. But most of the time, it's just like, here's your stuff back, have a good night, and then I go on patrolling.
All right. Interesting. Just to hear, as you were just sharing, my mind, got to thinking about it. And I know that feeling, like when you see the lights, you get nervous. It's like, oh man, what I do.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad that you at least ask, like, or you at least tell them, like, hey, listen, this is the reason why I stopped you. Because I've had both. I've had situations where they're like, I pulled you over. And in the back of your mind, you're like, no, you tell me. I think I was speeding, but I went looking at the speedometer until I seen blue lights. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and sometimes people tell me they're going a certain speed, like that's lower what I stopped them for. And my main response to that is, well, I'm not saying that you were going 77 and 55 all the time. And I'm not saying that you looked down at one time and saw 63 because you're slowing down. So, I don't say, well, you're lying to me or this and that. Sometimes I can understand that people telling the truth. They look down, they slowing down and, saw 63, but a mile ago, you were going 77. So, I try to explain that when people become not argumentative, but they just start asking questions, things like that. I try to be as clear as I can. And again, I'm the only Black police officer in that whole valley, and some people think I'm Puerto Rican, Lebanese, or, whatever. I've been asked so many, not so many times, but, what are you kind of thing. And I have to tell them, I'm German and Black. And
right.
But I consider myself Black, and I'm the only one there, and I get treated differently by the public. So, and that's Black and white, but we can get into that later.
All right. Now, Attorney Melaney LaGrone, I know you also have been an officer. What usually do you think comes in mind when an officer's pulling somebody over in a traffic stop?
I think it's always about why you're pulling them over. Because I agree with everything that Officer Burton said. Obviously, you're gonna, monitor the situation and look what they're doing in the inside and see if they're moving or see if they're calm, all that kind of stuff. But also too, we always think about why we were pulling them over. So did we run the plates and it's stolen? Was it, a bolo out on, that particular type of car involved in some certain crime, or was it, just they, didn't stop at a stop sign. So you kind of evaluate the situation as a whole and then take it from there.
Okay. And for those who don't know, if you could just explain BOLO, is that like be on the lookout? I just want to make sure I have that right.
Yes.
Okay. So for those who are watching, a BOLO is be on the lookout. So this is good that you brought that out as well, because sometimes as you guys are doing your job and have done your job, you'll see somebody that may have a vehicle that fits the description of a vehicle that may have committed a crime. And you're just investigating like, hey, I just want to see if you're that guy that I'm looking for. Be on the lookout. And it's like, oh, what do you know? Black Monte Carlo on Dubs. Here it go. So in those cases, I know people can be hostile because they feel like, why y'all stopping me? Oh, it's because I got a Black Monte Carlo. No, bro. Somebody just robbed a bank with a Black Monte Carlo and you just happen to pass by the block with one too. So, sometimes that could be a misconception. And I'm glad that even tonight we're bringing out, for those watching, if you're doing a lot of movement in the car, that obviously alerts the officers. It's like, hey, something's going on because why are they, jerking and shaking? I had a friend of mine. He said he had slipped his seatbelt on one time. He said his brother went to get his. And he was like, he told him like, hey, you can't just put it on right when the lights come on. You got to do it at a certain time. And he said he was able to slip his on. His brother tried to put it on right away. And he said when the officer came up, he was like, I saw you put yours on. He said, now you're slick. I missed you, but I saw you put yours on. But sometimes, people, unfortunately, do get nervous and they make a lot of motions and moves. So just hearing that off the first question, guys, I'm hoping that you're understanding that the officers have a job to do. And when they see you moving a lot, it raises suspicion. And I could understand that.
And it's not just moving around. It's also when you start reaching under the seat. And so when that happens, I tend to get more alert, but I don't draw my gun or anything like that. And we have the same kind of crime. I mean, we have an on season and an off season. In the on season, we're talking about thousands of people coming in to ski, to go, we have the winter and then we have the summer. And that's where most of this stuff starts happening. But, we got murders, robberies, burglaries. It just don't happen that often.
And I'm glad you brought that out too, because that's another thing. I know some people, I know myself, I've been guilty. I used to keep my wallet in my back pocket. I tend to keep it in my front pocket. So when you're getting stopped, what advice, and I know this is just off the cuff, but what advice would you give, I guess, for guys who are like, oh, I gotta get my wallet, and they just start reaching in their back pocket as soon as they get stopped?
Right. Like if they try to reach for something, I do look, but most of the time I can tell by the traffic stop if somebody's like cooperating and the way they talking, then reach in your back pocket. Most people tell me where their wallet is. Can I get my wallet out? Absolutely. I'm gonna open my glove box, but my light is in that car, and I always think that I have enough time to react if it's something, if they pull out a gun or something like that. And in Colorado, they got what's called, it's an open carry state. So you can walk around, like the old West.
Wow.
But if you can, yeah, and in your car, you can have your gun anywhere you want. But if you start concealing it on your person, then you need a permit to do that. And again, in Colorado, if I do a Terry frisk, which is something where I can't go in somebody's pocket, but I can check for any bulges or weapons.
Right.
In Colorado, if I have somebody out, I have to have a reasonable suspicion, at least, or probable cause to think that they might have a weapon. And that means something sticking out, or I have to be able to articulate that it's late at night, I'm by myself on the highway, and I just want to be safe, especially if I think a person is lying to me, because there's certain things that make me want to pull you out of the car, because I don't pull everybody out of the car, and I do realize that, yeah, once those lights come on, because even when I'm driving and I'm in a police car and a state trooper like drives by me, I still look in the rearview mirror just because it's out of habit.
Right.
And but yeah, if I pull somebody out, there's a reason I'm pulling you out. In Colorado, like I said, ever since the Black Lives Movement and all that,
right.
like we haven't been defunded, but it's just been more stricter. Like the body cam has to be on. We have to be able to articulate. We don't have qualified immunity. And qualified immunity is, even if I did something in good faith, the person that I stopped can sue me personally. And I would have to show up for court and explain this is why I stopped them. And it could be something as simple like, no, I wasn't speeding. Officer Burton is lying. I'm gonna sue him for $25,000. And then off the court we go.
Wow.
So
wow. So
anyway, I think that's a quick.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, Colorado don't play.
yeah. I said Colorado is different. You know, we're in Atlanta, and then I know Attorney Melaney, you actually been in Detroit. Do they have an open carry, or do they have similar laws in Detroit, or is it totally different there?
No, we don't have well, we didn't. Michigan, I don't believe it does now, but no, it didn't have an open carry law at all.
Wow. So okay, so just hearing that, I do see that Colorado's different. I know Colorado's actually been booming because they had like I think they were one of the first states to legalize marijuana. Everybody started going to Colorado after that. Like, people would tell me, "I'm leaving Atlanta, I'm going to Colorado." I'm like, "Yeah, I know why you're going to Colorado. You waiting for 420, ain't you?" No, but okay. No, okay, that's interesting just to hear. And that's something also I guess people watching should consider. Different states have different laws and different things. So you what I'm getting though overall from both of you, the consensus is to cooperate to make sure that you're not doing a lot of extra movement unnecessarily and just kind of explaining yourself. I can understand, especially if you're stopping somebody at night, a higher, I guess, alert, because daytime is so many cars and people going by, and you think some people wouldn't be as brazen as to do something in public. I know people do though, but you would think people wouldn't. But at night, I would probably be a little bit more on edge myself. And I totally agree with you, Officer Burton, as far as when the lights cut on, I'm not even speeding. I'll be doing the limit. As soon as I see them lights, I'm like, oh, man. And I'm like, oh, he getting somebody. Because there's 1,000,001 people flying by me. I'm like, it's got to be one of y'all. It can't be me. You know? So
I tell people all the time, you got to treat your car like an airplane. Go around, check your tires, check your lights. Make sure everything's running right and make sure your tags are up to date, whatever. And yeah, usually the speed limit wise on the highway, it's 55, but most people go 65. So I kind of flash them, whatever. For me to stop you, you got to be going like 75 and above.
okay.
And I'll stop you. And I usually write your ticket because the problem we have here is people hit a lot of deer. And I don't know if you notice or not, but you hit a deer at like 70 miles, 77 miles an hour. And there's a good chance, number one, I already told him my car a couple of days ago. And it's like hitting a brick wall, especially if you start talking about elk. And that's why, I enforce that speed limit. But
no, that's good.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's actually for the public safety. No, you're good. You're good. That's for the public safety then as well. Because, I mean, if you're going that speed, 77 and hitting, a deer or elk could do that. I know that we have deer in Atlanta. We don't have elk as much. And I've seen some of the damage people have sustained. One of the drivers that I know had a van, and I mean, like hit from his door to the whole front end got tore up from hitting a deer, and he had to get it replaced.
And I give you some advice. Don't try to avoid it because you'll overcorrect, and there's a chance you could flip your car. You kind of hopefully you got your seatbelt on, and you just plow through it.
Look, Peter gonna be at us now. Look, you had Peter coming after us. They just go and hit the poor animal. Hey, look, I'm not flipping my car over. Yeah. Dying for Bambi. Yeah. He got to go.
Well, like you said, Lord, take the wheel and then just head on out.
Right.
Hopefully you can make it.
Right. What'd you say? Melanie, I'm sorry.
I said, take that crash like a champ.
That's right.
I know that's right. Yeah, I mean, I love deers, but I'm not finna die for one, that's for sure. So let me ask you, in your opinion, and in both of your opinions, what do you think the hardest part about being a police officer is?
You can go ahead. I'm always chiming in.
Oh, you're fine. The hardest part, I would say doing your job, period. Because you're always going to get criticized. There's always going to be things that the public feels that you should have done differently. But, you have rules and regulations and ways that you're supposed to do things, and you're supposed to protect yourself and protect the public. So I think just the job in general is the hard part.
All right.
For me, it's it's the same thing. But like I said, I live in a mostly white town, and I get racial slurs hurled at me. And 33-year-old Anthony used to be like, oh, I'm surprised he knows I'm black, But 49-year-old Anthony, he gets a little bit more upset. But we can't lose our cool. We can't, you know what I mean? I can't do like I said, when I'm 20 and you call me that, it'd be different kind of, be
Right.
different kind of conversation we would have. But another thing is, she's right. You can't do nothing right. I was in a shooting, I would say 2 years ago in Thanksgiving, and everybody did what they're supposed to do, and they, it was a guy, he was going to kill himself, but he's waving the gun around. There's people around, and once he cocked that trigger back, unfortunately, lethal force had to be used. And nobody wants to do that. You know what I mean? Like, even though I didn't shoot the bullet, it's still, I think about it, like every time I drive by that, where it happened, it's like, oh, I can't believe that happened. Because to be honest with you, most police officers don't draw their gun or shoot somebody. It's just unfortunate that, people can lose their lives doing this profession, including myself, because the way we do it, it's the public in terms of like who I got to protect, or the safety comes first. So the public safety is first, my safety is second, and then not the perp, but the suspect, whoever's doing something that gets us on alert, he's at the bottom. You know what I mean? But our main thing is we got to ensure that the public is safe. Every bullet that we fire, we have to account for. We have to know what we're aiming at, what we're doing, because the last thing we want to do is hit somebody just minding their own business. So like our thing is, we can't shoot into a car. Like if we're standing outside and that car is gone, we can't just start shooting in it, unless it's a violent felony.
Right.
And by violent, I mean murder. My main thing is, like, it's harder for me as I get older to take my vest off at night and then sit down and it's out of my head. I think about what happened during the day, what someone said to me. And like I said, I can't win with white people and I can't win with black people, And let me tell you something, when I see a black person in that town, I'm like, oh, look, we got somebody black in town, I'm like, what's going on? Where you from? Kind of thing. But they don't want to hear that because all they see is my badge. And that upsets me too. I've been told, like, oh, I got a black man. One time, well, a couple of times, they get mad because they got a black man telling them what to do. Like, put your hands behind your back, or, don't be doing that because you're going to start a forest fire. And like 2 people I can hear under the breath, black man telling me what to do. Now, the thing is, racism isn't as cool as it used to be. Not cool, but it's not as open as it used to be. But my thing is, if you calling me a racial slur and you drunk, because I pretty much think the filter's off and you have racist tendencies when you're not drunk too. I try to be as polite as possible, as until the person dictates otherwise, because I have to be, one leg. If they yelling at me and things like that, I have to start raising my voice to let them know who's in charge, things like that.
No, I think it's a solid concern or a solid thought, because I mean, like, I've experienced, even my dad being military, moving around and going into culture shock or different circles, and they may view or look at us different or ask certain questions. I remember we were stationed on Fort Shafter, Oahu, and all of the kids there either like Polynesian, Tongan, or white or Asian or something, so everybody had straight hair but me. I was the only kid on base with like curly hair, and everybody made fun of me because of that, so it took them some time to get used to me there.
Right.
My sister actually helped me. She taught me my first rhyme. She said, go out there and tell them, because I ran the house crying, they were picking on me. She's like, go out there and tell them, I got curls for the girl and y'all got sloppy spaghetti hair. And when I said that little rhyme, like all the kids on the base were like, meet this cool kid with curls for the girls. Like it became a campaign slogan or something.
Yeah, and the people I work with, it's mostly just, we joke around a lot. We give each other a hard time. There's no ill intent in it, I guess, right, is what I'm trying to say. Because they're good guys, but sometimes, I laugh along, but I get home and I was like, oh man, that kind of hurt my feelings a bit, but then I get over it. Yeah. And then, we go to work, we all get along, they're great officers. So.
And I want to say this too, just to your comment earlier about how people treat black officers. Even the cool ones, even because I know some that have actually known in the county down here in Clayton that were cool, and it's like in the hood, you know what I mean? And people may get mad at me for saying this, but a brother can't win, because I remember growing up, like you had movies like Who's the Man with Dr. Dre and Ed Lover, where they made fun of being an officer, and then growing up, you know, in the hood, they're like, oh no, I don't want to be a cop, I want to be an officer. But then they have all the complaints about what officers do. And I'm like, bro, maybe we might need to start being officers and detectives and judges and lawyers and getting into these things. Because, you know, on one end, you have a community saying, I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to be part of that. Don't cooperate with it. But then on the flip side, you're not giving any tangible solutions to fix the issue. And I can just imagine, you know, seeing somebody and they see the badge first and not realizing the person behind it. Like, yo, I got a family, I got a neighborhood, I got a story to tell. I might have been... You know, I've even known some officers have bumps and bruises with the law too. You know what I mean? And when they're youth, and then when they get older, look at Judge Mathis. You know, he got a full story about all the things he did before he became a judge. So I think it's something that collectively we could start having those kind of conversations. I've seen YouTube videos where officers will like roll up and play basketball in the hood with some kids. I've seen where they'll start like it was a noise ordinance of a rock band rehearsing. And dude actually played guitar, I think, or drums. And he's like, hey, you mind if I get on the set with you? And it was just kind of like bridging the gap with the community and helping them to see beyond just the badge, you know what I mean? Because that is a problem. I think in the hoods, you know, that I've been around in the community, I've seen people make that argument, and it's crazy. I mean, one example, I know I keep going on about it. I had one friend, he was cool throughout high school, and I remember we graduated, and he decided he wanted to be a correctional officer. And, you know, he started working for the DeKalb County as a correctional officer. And a lot of the guys that went to school with us was like, oh, we can't hang with him no more because he's a cop now. And I'm like, he's the same guy. You know what I mean? Okay, he's an officer, but he's the same guy. He ain't locking you up. You know, but people do have that misconception when it comes to law enforcement. So I know that.
They do. My friends, when I visit my friends in Alabama, they absolutely treat me different than they used to. So... And by treating me different, I mean, like, because I don't think Alabama weed is legal yet. I'm not sure. You know, like, if I could see they've been smoking, they start getting scared. And I try to tell them, I was like, you know, I don't have any authority here. Like, you know, can we just hang out and, you know, and just chill, you know, whatever. I don't care what you know, I don't care what you do. I mean, as far as that's concerned, you know what I mean? So I get that.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. All right. So I was going to ask also, you know, I hear people say sometimes when they're stopped by the police, you know, like you don't have to answer any questions. You know, you don't have to say anything until they tell you why they stopped you. Is that actually true, or is that just an urban legend? Because a lot of the misinformation out here is probably what's causing some of the calamities too sometimes. Not all, but some of the bad things that happen could be because people think they have certain rights that they really don't have. Sometimes, you know, they may have those rights and they're unaware. So in a case like that, if a person stopped and they're like, I ain't got to answer you nothing, you ain't got to say nothing to me, is there like different levels to stops or different levels of investigations where sometimes they need to cooperate, sometimes they don't?
At the end of the day, if a police officer walks up to the car and asks you for your driver's license, you give them your driver's license. It doesn't make any sense to sit there and argue or think that you know the law if you really don't. A police officer, my understanding, I mean, Officer Burton, do you have to walk up to a car and say, this is why I stopped you, otherwise they can't talk to you? I don't think that's the case.
You actually don't have to say anything to me. You can just sit there and look straight ahead. But what you have to do is you have to give me what I asked for. If you don't, that's when we start having a problem, because I'm giving you a legal order. And sometimes, you know, they can sit, like I said, they can sit there in silence, give me what they want. And, you know, sometimes I do ask questions, you know, where are you from? But they don't have any obligation to talk to me unless I start an investigation or pull them out. Then they still have the right to remain silent, you know. Right. They don't, again, you don't have to say anything, but mostly I do get people talking to me, you know, rather it is they talk to me because they're nervous, or they talk to me because, again, they feel like they have to talk to me. And it's all about my attitude too. Hey, how you doing? And I introduce myself. I'm Anthony. I'm with the Mountain PD. This is why I'm stopping you. And I feel like if I put them at ease, then they start talking to me. But then you have people who argue immediately, and I have to tell them, I can't hold court out here. It's late or whatever. I got my job to do. Just give me what I need, and then I'll be out of your hair quicker. That's some of the things I've said too. And because I tell them, I know it's nerve wracking, and the sooner you do this, the sooner I get out of your hair. If everything is the way it's supposed to be, I'll give you warning or whatever, and you could be on your way. And that's what I do.
All right. No, I'm glad you.
And I think it's a no-win situation I personally, it's a no-win situation for someone in a vehicle who gets stopped, who thinks that their ego, it's like their ego doesn't want them to answer the questions, or they're going to be combative, or they're going to be argumentative. Well, that's going to change the officer's whole demeanor. And then once that demeanor changes, you can, I always say you can talk your way into getting arrested. So, it's just like,
absolutely.
Calm. If the officer is calm, asking you questions, he's calm and just answer the questions, give him what he wants, so then he can go on about his business. You can get your ticket, and you can go on about your business. But you can ultimately talk your way into an arrest.
No, that's good advice. That's good advice. And you're right. I have seen that. I've seen stops. There was a grandmother, I think she was in Texas, and the officer pulled her over. He said, listen, you were speeding. And he was trying to write her a ticket. And she's like, I'm not paying it. I'm not giving you anything. And he tried to hand her the ticket, and she literally rips it and throws it out the window. So then he's like, get out the car, and she's like, you're going to tase I think she was 67, or you're going to tase a 67-year-old woman, because she was really being combative. And I'm like, Grandma, just take the ticket. You know what I mean? And I seen another one where the lady actually got in her car and pulled off. And the officer chased her. And she's like, okay, fine, give me the ticket. He's like, no, ma'am, we're going to jail now. We've gone beyond that. And just thinking about it, because you both made a very valid point, you can change the officer's mood or the mood of the conversation and being combative. One in particular I noticed, this started happening more frequently. You had these people that would call themselves naturalized citizens. And I remember when it was all the rave a few years ago, people were like, oh, just burn your Social Security card and say you're no longer a citizen of the U.S. and the laws don't apply to you. And I'm like, y'all crazy. Y'all gonna go to jail. You better. And I've heard of people using that when they get stopped. I've even seen videos where the guy's like, I'm a natural born man. I'm a natural citizen. I don't owe you anything. This is God's country. And I'm like, okay, loony, here come the taser. You better answer the questions.
In Colorado. Uh-huh. No, sorry. In Colorado, they call themselves as sovereign citizens. And they're not driving on the roadway, they're traveling. And the Constitution, in their words, I haven't seen it, allows them to do that without a driver's license, without government ID. And what happens is they lose their car, they get tickets for not having a driver's license, and sometimes I tell them, I was like, it's just too much trouble for you to go through just because you have a point to make. You know what I mean? It's too much trouble. It's just, it's not worth it, losing your car, and then you got to walk somewhere, and police will, because what happens is they ride around with no license plate, and that's what gets them stopped. And then it's just, how dare you, this and that. And next thing you know, you're out of your car, and you're getting tickets, and you walking wherever you got to go, And there's only one person that I've had that happened to. I pulled him over a couple of months ago, and he had a license. And he was like, yeah, you're right. It was just too much. I get stopped every 5 minutes. I was like, of course you do. That's just common sense. But go ahead.
Well, that's because too, they don't think that the laws of the state pertain to them, because they're not necessarily, it's like they're not a citizen, they're an entity, and they're guided by the UCC. So just imagine, as a criminal defense attorney, trying to represent one of a sovereign citizen in court. Because at one point in time, I did some indigent defense work for one of the counties here. And so I was assigned to a couple, actually, gentlemen, and they don't want attorneys, because that means that if they accept an attorney, then that means that they're accepting the laws of the state. And yeah, it's
Wow.
well, most of the time they represent themselves per se, and they argue themselves into a prison sentence.
Right. I mean, that's what it sounds like. Because it takes years to become a lawyer. You know what I mean? Just to study law, and then even in the police academy, there's months and months of training to prepare. So to think that these average citizens come up with this stuff sometimes, and I've seen it on TV before. I've even seen like is a group, these Hebrew Israelite guys. They try to like represent themselves in court, like, well, we answer to the laws of Yah. And I'm like, bro, you finna go to prison. Like, they finna throw the book at you. You can't just be running up in these folk face thinking you got a tangible argument there. I'm glad you guys brought that out. That's interesting. And man, wow. I'm still tripping off the guy without, the tag and the sovereign citizen. Because I've heard these things. And I remember, like I said, I was in high school. I went to like an alternative school. And it was a group of kids that came to us and was like, if you burn your social security cards, you can smoke weed legally. They can't stop you. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But kids believed it.
Yeah.
And then they start having kids with some of these girls. And we're going to name our children natural name. Your name going to be Tree. You're going to be 7. All this craziness. Wow. Okay. What's up, guys? How you doing? This is Micah Dobbins, host of the Micah Dobbins Show, and this show is brought to you by none other than Tees of Faith 316. When I go out and about sometimes and I'm rocking my Teens of Faith gear, people usually read the statements on my shirts and ask me, where did I get them from? So now you guys too can order your own shirts from Tees of Faith, even the official clothing of the Micah Dobbins Show. This right now is one of my favorite hoodies, Thou Shalt Not Steal, still relevant, representing for Tees of Faith 316. All right, so let me ask you guys, what are some ways that we could try to improve relations possibly between the police and community? Or are there any thoughts or ideas you may have had that we may be able to kind of help the community become more aware? I know right now there's a lot of civil unrest, and I know there's a lot of blame throwing and a lot of things that rightfully so have happened, and some things people may have brought upon themselves. I like the fact that Officer Burton, you mentioned that, keeping the body cams on. That's something that obviously a lot of people will be okay with. Some of the things I see from body cams though are crazy. I've seen some where people are like literally like hiding the drugs with the body cam on. I remember a lady actually opened her purse when the officer pulled her over, and she starts holding up money while he's trying to give her a ticket. I'm like, ma'am, this is a crime. You tried to bribe an officer. She's just like, oh, how much? She's pulling the money out. I'm like, you on body cam. But what are some ways, I guess, we could try to better or improve the relations between the community and between the law enforcement?
Well, this is one of them right here. What I do, I just try to treat people with respect. But unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't get reciprocated. I come there smiling, this and that, but because they see the badge or how dare I stop them, they're already up here, And then I got to try to bring them down. I got to bring them down to my level, And that's the first thing I try to do. I try to de-escalate. That's how we're trained, at least in my department. We have to try to de-escalate the situation first before we start pulling people out the car or start yelling at them. You got to do what, you got to do what I got to tell you, But as far as community relations, sometimes it's just good to have everybody in the room together. And this is what I do. This is what I have to do for a living. And if you think that, you're above it all, or you get this sense of entitlement, which I deal with a lot of rich people. And some rich people, they feel entitled because they pay my salary, in taxes. I've been told that all the time. They pay my salary, so I need to do what they say. They don't need to do what I'm telling them to do.
Wow.
But it's getting people in the room and, well, what's your problem with police? Well, they killing everybody. They killing, this and that. And don't get me wrong. Now, there's some police officers, like I said, with any job, there's some police officers that shouldn't be police officers. I had to go through a psych evaluation, background check, just to make sure I'm not one of those people that just come in hot. Like I pull somebody over And I'm like, I need to see this, I need to see that. And, you get that kind of talking.
Right.
But yeah, getting people in the room and listen to their complaints, what they got to say, and then just trying to explain yourself. But again, these body cameras that we have, not only do they hold us accountable, and that's what we say, because we had a meeting before, it holds me accountable and then it holds you accountable.
Yes.
I'm not saying the video shows everything that's going on, that's happening. And some people believe that, and I have to explain, yeah, you can see what's going on, but sometimes it's different when I'm talking to somebody and I see like a little small movement where, again, 15 years is a long time. And I see a small movement that the camera might not pick up, and then I got to testify, well, why is this camera not showing that? Well, I'm right there standing and it just didn't pick it up, or just whatever. I can tell somebody by the way they look, the way they act, things like that. But going back to your question is letting the community know we're not out there just to terrorize them. There's millions stopped a day in the United States. And most of them go pretty good,
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we try to explain to people mainly.
I'm a huge proponent of community policing and bringing it back, because when I was on the job, a long time ago, I won't date myself, but, we had it to where, you had to live in the city and you basically are living in the community that you're working in. And so your neighbors knew you knew your neighbors, you knew their kids and things like that. There was a lot of times where, we might pick up a kid for, I don't know, something random, weed or something like that, not take them to jail. We take them home, to their parents, and their parents thank us. And then, go on about, everyone goes on about their business. But I think community policing would be a huge start, because then you're back to wanting to protect your community. You're back to wanting to make sure that everyone is safe, and your community they have your back as well, because they know that you're there for them, and they know that they can call you, just for, whatever, random stuff, or have a meeting at your house if they have a concern about, break-ins or whatever's going on. We've gotten away from that. And I think that's huge, because there's now such a disconnect between the police and the citizens. There's no respect anymore, and everyone is fighting. And I don't think that it's going to get better unless someone takes an initiative and changes something.
No, that's true. Very valid points too. I appreciate you both on that, because as I'm listening, I was thinking, and you touched on it with community policing. You get to know, the people, the officers. I remember my wife was sharing when she was a kid, there was an officer that used to come to their school, and they called him like Officer Friendly or whatever, but he had like a real name, and the kids would kind of get to know him. So it kind of created a trust or a bond there. Now, most of the officers that might be in the schools, they might not even know the kids. They're just like, hey, you get into a school fight, I'm putting these cuffs on you and dragging you to jail. So the kids are having this mindset like, oh, they watching over us, wanting to be disrespectful. And then with a sense of entitlement even, a lot of young people feel like they're owed things. So with this entitlement culture, they'll feel like, I ain't got to listen to him. He ain't my daddy. He's just an officer. All kind of things may come out. So I'm glad you guys brought that out, that, having officers that are from the community, around the community, having conversations, maybe even meetings, neighborhood meetings, just to kind of break the ice a little bit. Because, for one, I know the uniforms can be intimidating in certain cases. Those who are in Georgia and Clayton County, our sheriff kind of does like a paramilitary style. So like when they roll up, it's like SWAT. Like Clayton County roll up like SWAT. And I'll be honest, I understand it though, because when I moved out to the county, it was a little off the chain. It was calm, and then it got kind of wild. And then we got a sheriff here, and I'm not gonna get into all that. But I know there was an officer I knew personally that was cool. Like he came and spoke at a youth convention for us. And when I had a fender bender at a Quick Trip, the officer that arrived on the scene kind of had like a bad vibe. But I think after looking at his knuckles, when I handed him my insurance and paperwork, I saw his knuckles was busted. I said, he probably just had like an altercation, and he is not for it today. And then we're the next stop. But the lady that had an accident with me in the van, he literally just wrote up license insurance, and then he pulled off to the back of the gas station. And she's like, wow, I never seen that before. And I'm like, he may have had a bad day. In the midst of me saying that, the officer I knew pulled up. And I spoke to him. I said, hey, the guy just took our stuff and rode the back. And he was cool. He spoke to the officer. The guy's whole demeanor changed. And I was able to, get my information and everything.
Mike, I also think, though, too, it's parents when they're raising their children, the first thing they say is when they see a police officer is something like, if you do something bad, he's going to take you to jail, or, they automatically put a bad perception of the police in their children's minds. And so as they're growing up, then they're not going to have that respect, and they're going to think that the police are bad and that they're going, they're against them and not for them. So they're not going to listen.
That's true.
And when I hear that, I always say, nope, that's not what I do. I always tell, because you're right, I hear that a lot. And I was like, and I always tell them, I was like, nope, I'm not taking you to jail. I'm not, I'm here to help you. That's the first thing I say. But I do like to comment on the uniform, and I'm sure that you can answer better than I can. But if you're part of a drug task force, you might have a little bit more extra protection on, because, if you got drugs, there's a good chance you probably got a gun involved, and things like that. I mean, my first maybe 5 years there, we wore brown shirts and we had our vests on the inside, and we were supposed to look as non-threatening as we could. And what happened is, throughout the years, is now we have like a vest that we put on and it zips up. And I have a lot of stuff, not huge stuff, but I have like mace, I got my radio, a handcuff, and it looks like a lot, and I tell people when they say something, I'm like, yeah, it's a lot going on. I guess a lot going on, but it helps my hips. I don't have to wear that much stuff on my belt. It gets hot at the office. I can take it off, and I can put it back on. So, sometimes where I work at, it's not about looking paramilitary or trying to be intimidating, because there's an office, there's a department we work with, they're the marshal's office. They actually had to change the color of their shirt because it was all black. They were all black. And because it was too intimidating for the town council. So now they wear like a light blue shirt, but they still wear the tactical vest. And I'm, which they can't understand. They thought the tactical vest was what was bothering people, but it was actually just being in all black. Wow. Where we were gray and black. So, I thought I'd throw that in there about the vest and all that.
No, I'm glad you did. That's interesting, because I can't imagine like a council coming together like, oh, this is scaring us. Like, I get it, because I think different situations, and let me back up so I don't get myself in no trouble then either. But I think like there are situations in the community that may have been orchestrated by external forces, and then there's some that may happen internally. So for that reason, neighborhoods are governed differently at times. And I know that there's kind of like a fine line between the two. So in certain neighborhoods, I'm gonna be honest, like I said, where I was at, it was so off the chain, like the paramilitary style, we finna come up in here. It helped a lot. Like I was following the trends in our county, and like rape, murder, and all these things decreased in Clayco with the changes. So I was like one of those citizens, like, you know what, guys, it's a means to an end. I understand it's uncomfortable sometimes, but hey, at least we ain't got the rapes and the kick-ins and the gang violence that we had at one point. But on the other side, I work on the north side a lot, and I work on other sides of town. And I'm like, man, why can't we have it like that, where the officers can wear, a lighter gear that's not as intimidating, you know what I mean? And the people can just kind of get along like that. I would love to see that come together. And I think, as you guys just discussed tonight, having community meetings, discussions, interrelations between the community police, and even having police that locally work within those communities could do a big change. It could bring about a big change. I would love to see it.
Absolutely.
Personally. Okay, I had another question. I'm sorry, this would be like one of the last ones, but there have been cries by some people. They're saying like, hey, defund the police. And then other people are saying this may cause chaos. So in your professional opinion, what's the best way to resolve this kind of an issue? Because When I first heard defund the police, like everybody else, without looking into it, you think like we're just gonna take all money from police officers? That's crazy. Who's going, And then on the flip side, people that are more technical are like, well, defunding means we're gonna move some of the money instead of for this, we'll make it for training or for counseling, whatever the case may be. I know Attorney Melaney, you're probably way more sharper than me on that as a lawyer. But what are some ways we can address these arguments with this whole defund the police thing going on right now?
It just means reallocate. I mean, it just means reallocate resources. So, there might be, there might be a city police department and a county police department in the same area. And so it's basically just saying, well, maybe we should reallocate these resources, maybe combine them together and put more money into, training or whatever else is needed for the department, to operate more efficiently.
Okay.
So, I mean, personally, I think that if it's something that is very well figured out and analyzed and things like that, to figure out if it's actually going to be worth it, and if they know exactly where the funds are going to go and how they're going to allocate and what type of advantage there would be for it, then it doesn't seem like there would be an issue with it. What do you think, Officer Burton?
No, I agree. Like, especially like in the big cities, like the big departments who operate on millions of dollars, of money. Some of it goes to waste. I have no doubt. Now here, I'm a firm believer that if you take money from a police department, but they're still able to function, and you put that money into, say, something like mental health. Like here we have a big mental health problem because our summers are short and our winters are hard. It gets cold and people tend to be inside, and you get there with your thoughts, and then you start drinking. We have a lot of alcohol problems. But for me, it's like, if you can take some of that money and put it towards mental health, because it's a stigma here. Like, people think because you have a mental health problem that, well, I can't tell nobody, I can't do this and that. But to me, a mental health problem is like any other medical problem. It's you didn't break your arm, but your brain is broken, and you got to do something about it. So I have no problem. And that, yeah, again, making a long story short, I'm a firm believer in that you put money into the community to make the community better, because once the community is better, you got less crime. People get more neighborly or whatever, because they feel like there's something being done for them. So then they get that kind of attitude, they just feel better about it. Even though the defund the police sounds bad, because obviously you got to have police officers. Right. You can't, once that goes away, then right. It's chaos, yes. But you got to have good police officers.
True.
And like I said, there's millions of stops being done every day in the United States, and a lot of them turn out all right. But then, like any other job, like, you can go to Walmart and find one person that's just disgruntled. He don't want to be there, and he gonna let you know he don't want to be there. And you have police officers like that too. And then you have police officers, and this might be off topic, you have police officers that are so stressed that they really can't do their job, because everything to them is like a big deal, and then they feel like they have to react like it's a big deal, when it maybe not, right. They don't use that de-escalation and all that. But I'm a firm believer, if you got money and it's going to waste, and we're talking about millions of dollars, absolutely, put it in the community, but don't waste it. Don't waste it on road works, or, because they got different budgets for that, use it on the community. I'm a firm believer in that.
Right.
You know what? I love that you said that about mental health with the community, but also too, what about mental health for the police officers? Because I know there's like a lot of police departments that do not have any sort of like health, like wellness and things like that for the police officers. And I think it's needed, and especially when nowadays all the stress and everything that's going on in the world, and then you try to retire, and then you retire and you're all messed up in your head because of everything that you've gone through in the police department, and there's no resources there for you to go that's like funded, by the police department. Basically, you'd have to find someplace on your own. I think that's
our police department actually has that. Because like I said, 30-year-old Anthony, I was out there just, I'm a police officer. Look at, look what I can do. I'm just excited about a job. I'm 49. And like I said, I used to be able to take this vest off and go to sleep and sleep like a baby. Now I can sleep maybe 4 hours. And then like when the shooting happened, they automatically, you have to go see somebody. You can't just say no. But in our profession, it's a stigma. If you say you've got like some mental health problems, or like I just can't, I'm not having a problem. A lot of people think that they can't tell their boss, because now their boss is going to think, well, he can't do his job. If he, if he can't control this, how's he going to control somebody, control somebody else or deal with someone else's problem? What I tell people, when I put my vest on, it's like an armor. And say what you want to me, I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna do the best I can. But you're absolutely right, though. There's some departments who don't have that, and it starts affecting these officers' minds, and they become different people. They either become less respectful, they don't treat people the way they're supposed to, because they don't know how to handle their own problems. So how are they going to handle other people's problems? That's how I feel about that.
No, that makes sense, because I know that even those who may have joined the force that came out of the military, and if you already struggle with PTSD, and then you get into the line of police work, and it just compounds with all of the pressures of being an officer, and a person who's maybe already mentally fragile from being overseas and fighting, then coming here and putting on that uniform, and after a while lines could get blurred mentally. Just the was like, you know what? I'm just sick of everybody today. It could be those off days. So I'm glad y'all addressed that. And this is actually Mental Health Awareness Month. So it's good we kind of brought this out, because people do need to get that kind of help. And I think that rather than, because I think that narrative, when they say the words defund the police, a lot of these young people that are marching and saying this are thinking, that means we're going to shut down stations. No, y'all, we're reallocating funds. This money could be used to help some of y'all with y'all anger. It could be used to help some officers with their anger, so that everybody can kind of calm down and we can work this thing out. Because at the end of the day, we all got to live here together. We're going to be in the same communities. We got to work something out. But I agree with both of you that offering help for people who may struggle and removing the stigma off of coming forward and admitting that, hey, I have a problem, I need help. I remember there was a lady who had a breakdown, and she had killed her children. And a lot of people were so angry with the lady for doing that. They were just like, I can't believe she killed her own children, and then, try to offer, so what's wrong with her? But I was like, what pushed her to that limit? What made her snap to where she lost it like that? Because it wasn't a natural thing to want to kill your own child. And I think that a lot of people don't get the help when they have it. We see it even with depression. How many times we've seen a celebrity or a millionaire who has the world on a string, it seems, and then it's they killed themselves? Are you serious? You have everything. Why? So a lot of times the mental part, people are ashamed of or feel like they need to keep it a secret versus coming out and expressing it. Well, I appreciate you guys for even coming on tonight. This has been awesome. I do believe that these kind of conversations are good. Hopefully those of you who are watching will, leave comments in the comment description. Maybe if you have questions or things, maybe we could do a follow-up with you guys and have a couple of series to talk about just different things that law enforcement and people deal with. And even having attorney Melaney LaGrone on from the law firm to be able to discuss some of the legal ramifications that some of you all may be going through out there. But anything you guys wanted to say before we close out? Because I appreciate both of you for being here today.
I just want to say, most departments, I believe pretty soon all departments are going to have body cams. And if people run into that one officer and they don't have a good experience, just remember that not all officers are like that. That's the main thing. If you have a bad experience with somebody, complain. If they got body video, especially, and you feel disrespected and this is why, call their supervisor and say, this is what happened. The supervisor, I guarantee you, he's going to look at the video. He's going to talk to everybody, see what happened. And if, you got to be disciplined, Because again, without the public, we don't really have that power, policing power. We got to have the public support, or else we just ride around in a fancy car with lights, So that's one of my big things. Don't let one person influence everybody else. That's just my point.
All right, well said.
And follow instructions.
I totally agree with everything Officer Burton said. I think the biggest thing is, just like you said, with police officers, and there's some bad and there's, more good than bad. It's just like with any profession, doctors, lawyers, dentists. There's some really bad and there's some, that are really, really good. And so you can't hold everybody at the same, level. So just go back to the mutual respect. I think police need to go back to having that mutual respect for the citizens, and the citizens need to have that mutual respect for the police officers. And, we can all get along.
All right.
We can.
All right.